Like, how much better is that than the original? I mean, you know, you can play around with different things and change it up, but realistically, that's it. Hey guys, welcome back to another video. It's been a little while, but welcome and Happy New Year. As promised, today I'm going to go through some sound design with you. Basically going to show you the easy steps to starting sound design, because let's be honest, it's not all that hard to get around the basics. It's when you get into the advanced stuff that's actually really tricky, and there's so much to understand and there's so much to learn that's why so many people lean towards presets or samples or things that are already made, so that makes life easier in the production phase, and you don't get stuck sort of trying to create sounds. So really, when you're trying to create a track, you're coming up and you think, oh, I could really do with some form of this kind of sound right now. The talented people are able to go and make that sound straight away and something similar, and they know how to make it. That's somebody who really understands sound design. If you want to do it yourself, that's probably going to be, if you don't understand sound design, it's going to be very tricky. So you're probably going to lose your creative flow and you're going to end up getting stuck. My advice is to kind of not try and recreate anything. If you're doing it that way, just go for a preset and then sort of tweak it, because there's that many out there now that you pretty much can find any sound and tweak it into something completely different without really doing much. But that being said, today I wanted to show you the basics of a simple synth and run you through the easy steps and get you coming up with some sort of sound design. So I would do some sound design sessions where you just sit there and play around with all the different parameters and see what you can come up with. That's going to make a sample or a little loop that you can then drop into something and create a track around, and have your own unique design in there. So let's jump in. I'm going to open up Serum, simply because it's like one of the most common synths that everybody's using at the moment. So I thought it would be an easy one to show you how it works. Now, the first thing that we sort of want to talk through is the sound that you're creating is generated by two oscillators or an oscillator. And that's what generates a sound. Now, there's different types of sound waves. There is saw waves, sine waves, square waves. I'm sure you've heard of these types of things thrown around in conversation. All it really refers to is the actual shape of the sound wave and how it's traveling. So when sped up, the different shapes in the sound wave create a different sound to the ear. It creates a tone. So if you do it so fast, it ends up creating a tone, and then that's what we hear. You can manipulate this in so many different ways. So that's what these oscillators are starting to do, and then that's what a lot of the parameters in the synth are going to do for you. Let's start with a simple one. So let's jump in. They've got a few cool ones in this one. Let's just use this Tech one. You can just come up with a sound to begin with, and then create it, layer it, and it will end up sounding really, really cool. I'll show you. This one, so simple. Sounds pretty boring as it is right now, and that's because it's just a straight init preset. We can change the number of voices here, so you can, rather than just one sound, you can create it multiple voices, like it says there if you just hover over it. So we can create two. And then this little part here is going to detune each of the sides so that it sounds wider. So it should sound, we go to one already, listen to it again. Now to two. So you can see that it's like super detuned, sounds like clashy a little bit. We can turn this down, make it a little bit better. And then you can blend it here with this little knob here. And that's only if all the different unisons. You can go up to like heaps. And the different amount that you detune it is going to change pretty much how it sounds. So have a play around with those kinds of things. Down here, this little knob, this WT position is your wavetable position. It's got heaps of different subtables in here, so you can just essentially turn this and it's going to change the sound. That's really all it is. That's all you need to know, unless you want to dive into the advanced stuff. That's what I'm saying. It's like, this is just basic, really. This is just all you need to know. That's phase. You can change the phase if it's sounding funky in the mix, you can change the phase, or if it's clashing with another oscillator. Panning left and right and changing the gain and all this kind of thing. Simple. Oscillator 2, you can turn that on, you can create a different sound. We're just going to stick with one for now, just to show you how simple it is. Now, to come to the creative part, where you can kind of like muck around with that sound and create something different, we can look at filters. So we'll open up this filter here. It's standard low pass filter, I think, from the looks of it. Defaults on. You've got a whole bunch of different filters on here, but we'll stick with the low pass. Now, if you change the cutoff, listen. Like, nice little filter. We can now automate that to one of these things over here, which is a low frequency oscillator, which means it's just moving a hell of a lot slower, and you can then use that signal of whether it's, you know, whatever shape it is, we can change the shape. We can use that signal to affect the filter that then affects the original sound. A little complicated, but simple once you have a go. Drag this LFO onto the filter cutoff, because that's the one we want to automate, and then you can change essentially the parameters of how much you want it to filter, and follow this. So let's have a listen. We can see it's now following this pattern here. We can change it right down and push the whole envelope if we want. So it comes down to pretty much nothing. I like to have a little bit of sound in there. And then we can come down here and change how these are affected. So if we change the rate, we might be able to speed it up. We can smooth it out a bit. Nice and easy. Then we've got some envelopes. So the envelopes simply change the attack, the decay, the sustain on all these different parameters. So you can then make it come in like wub, wub, wub instead of a real sharp attack. So if we bring this envelope here and we put it on the cutoff as well, we can then slowly bring it up. See, instead of like, I mean, it's ignoring this LFO a little bit because we've mapped it to this one instead, but instead of going bop, 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 it's just gonna go take its time to come in, ease in once you hit the note, and you can see it traveling up before it comes in. So you can do simple things like that, change it on the arpeggio, but I'm gonna take off the envelope, and we'll just run this, just run the LFO, so it should be the same. There we go. Now we can add some noise to it. Noise is a really interesting one that just adds a top layer to it. Now that's buzzing as well, and what you can do is do the same thing and affect the noise with the LFO cutoff as well, and change it to go at the same time, do it on level, do it on, yeah, whatever you really like. But I kind of like, it's got a bit of a hiss to it. Then we can add a sub as well if you want to bring, let's make it a bass. So bring that hiss down and then add some sub. Like, how much better is that than the original? I mean, you know, you can play around with different things and change it up, but realistically, that's it. That's just a simple sound that we've created in a few minutes from nothing. Now, what I might do, for instance, if I liked that sound, you can go over to effects, you can put some hyper dimension on it. Let's bring it back into frame. I don't know why I did that. Change the size. A bit more detuning here. That creates that hyper space, I guess, feeling. Distortion. Whoops, wrong key. Maybe post. Bring some dry. I mean, it's like subtle, but it works. And then chorus. look, you can do some pretty crazy things. You can add on whatever you really want to do. From there, we might like what we've done, so I can go and record a loop. So if I just bring in here, click record, if I like that, I can do the old freeze and flatten to audio, and this there becomes our loop. And we can create something out of this. So we might go and just create a little pattern. Did it. I don't know. See, we can just go crazy. You can create something. So that's essentially sound design, and it's simple parameters. It's easy stuff. Jump into another synth. If I change the synth up to, say, silent for all argument's sake, we can do the same thing. So if we just have a look at a couple of the parameters that I was showing you before, we can change presets and all this kind of stuff in there if we need to, but realistically that's not you know, that's not what we're aiming for. But oh, it's going a bit slow here. Essentially up here, our two oscillators, we can change the envelope for the attack, release, all that kind of stuff. You've got all the effects that we were looking at before, same as Serum. Filters over here, filter control, the envelopes, and the LFOs. So literally everything is there, just in a different format. And it just takes a little bit of time to get to know your synth and get to know which one that you like using, and then you can pretty much start creating any sound that you want. Dive into some tutorials on YouTube about sine waves, saw waves, square waves, understand what kind of they are, and then you'll understand how to manipulate a certain sound into something that you might want, whether it be a super saw or a bass or a lead, whatever. If you can hear it in your head and you have an idea of what kind of wave that is, then you're going to have a much better way of creating that sound to use in your projects. But sound design is fun. Don't let anybody tell you that it's too difficult. Just have a go at it. Spend 5 minutes, 10 minutes just playing around like we did just then, and you can come up with something. I mean, that sounded okay, but a little bit more work and we could get it sounding amazing. So thanks for watching. I know it was a little bit overdue for sound design. I'll definitely do some more. I just wanted to share some more facts about my experience with sound design. But thanks for watching. We'll catch you again soon, and have a good one. See ya.
My jungle, full of mangoes, seen what I gon' do. Concrete city that I run through. If I don't know you, I don't trust you. Deeper to the night, eyes wide and chills up spine, I find you frightened. Better have an iron will in the heart of a lion. Surrounded by animals, cannibals, these sorts of radical.